For years, the American public has been victimized by the so-called cinematic geniuses, telling us time and again to see inferior movies, leaving us bitter and lost with nowhere to turn. But no more! This travesty of justice cannot and will not continue, because we now have the Cinema Judge!
Hello and welcome to the Cinema Judge. We here at the Cinema Judge will take you for moments to inform you, the jury, more about our show. First of all, ladies and gentlemen, clearly, we are not journalists. We haven't gone to any elite Ivy League school and paid thousands of dollars to have somebody else tell us what it takes to make a good movie. We're smarter than that, and so are you. Nor have we traveled the world and spoken to the old wise men and asked about the deep, hidden meanings behind Hollywood's visions. We here at the Cinema Judge, we haven't done any of these things. But what we have done is watch a lot of movies. Some good, some not so good. And our goal here at the Cinema Judge is to have one thing. That's an enjoyable movie experience. Now, approaching the bench today, we have a movie that you wouldn't think has this much depth or this much background. But it's the new movie that's on demand because of all this stuff going on. Obviously, it's not in a theater. It's called The King of Staten Island. It's written by Judd Apatow and co-written by Pete Davidson. In essence, and you'll hear this later on in the show, it is basically a fictionalized autobiography of Pete Davidson. Because in real life, his father was a fireman. And his father did die in the attacks of 9/11. So this movie is about his life, but they change it, of course, a little bit, where he wants to be a tattoo artist, and his father doesn't die in the attacks. But still, a lot of this deals with his family and his issues. And also, it's really kind of some fun other parts, too. Some of the guys that were in his father's team or his workplace actually are in this movie. So it was kind of a very emotional thing for him to have them there, with him shooting this movie. And Stevebuscemi, who plays Papa in this film, actually in real life, when he was younger, really was a fireman. So these little, tidbits are really kind of fun. But, as you know, Judd Apatow, who directed this and co-wrote it, he's done every movie in this vein that you could possibly think of. From Knocked Up, The 40-Year-Old Virgin, This Is 40, Trainwreck. And he's married to Leslie Mann. And just on a personal level, I love Leslie Mann. Very talented. She's in a lot of his work. And so is his children. And again, Maude is in this film, and she plays Pete Davidson's sister. So anyway, all these little parts just make this film so much more interesting, a lot more depth. And in this show, we're going to have a really great interview with Judd Apatow and Pete Davidson. It's kind of long, and I just let it kind of play out because it's so informative. They're so open and honest about their own personal struggles in life and how both of them see therapists. And they don't shy away from it. They just say, hey, yeah, I need this, and it's a good thing. So it's something that we don't often hear enough, but I think it's very healthy that we all sometimes do take a pause and say, I got to take care of myself. And they talk very openly about that. So the first thing I'm going to play for you is this kind of this overview. It's a featurette saying who is Pete Davidson. So within this next featurette, you're going to hear Judd Apatow, other actors, and little clips from the movie interspliced with people talking about him. So just so you get a little bit more background, I gave you a brief little spattering of stuff here, but coming up next, here's a little bit more of who is Pete Davidson.
We'll never understand Pete, but this will definitely help.
Speaking of the star of the show, who's bringing that energy today? It's Pete, and he's got a movie.
He's doing a good job. Getting ready for his career, working at a car wash.
Why do we have to clean this thing anyway? It's just gonna get fire on it.
When you see someone like Pete, you know there's a lot going on. but you really don't know what it is. I think that people are interested in his struggle. They want to know, how are you doing? You know, what happened to you? The King of Staten Island is an opportunity for Pete to tell you about himself and to tell you about his feelings and his journey.
What is that date?
That's the date my dad died.
Oh my God.
Pete is from Staten Island. His father was a fireman who lost his life on 9/11.
And it was really so hard for him to recover. And I would even say it's just been recently that he's finding his way and being okay.
I think he's very fortunate that Amy is his mother, because she's behind him all the way. God, takes a lot of energy to keep up with him, and he's been true to mill.
Your dark sense of humor doesn't work for me.
I find it funny.
One of the first conversations we had was, how autobiographical should the King of Staten Island be? And we decided that it could be completely fictional, but it's an imagining of what Pete's life would have been if he didn't find comedy and he dreams of being a tattoo artist.
But what are you gonna do? Are you gonna get a job or are you gonna leave the house?
I'm gonna open that tattoo restaurant.
No, like for real.
It's never been done before. I looked it up.
The movie is like my love letter to my mom and trying to end that part of my life. I feel like maybe we got to a place where we could finally let go a little bit.
I think this movie has stirred up a lot of emotions for him though, like both good and bad, but I think it'll be therapeutic.
This movie is about things that are very real to Pete, and there are a lot of real participants involved. John Sorrentino worked with Pete's dad, Terry Gaines, Colson. Ricky is Pete's best friend. His other best friend Dave wrote the movie with us.
I really wanted all the people in it to crush more than anything. We got to put them in a place where they could hit home runs, and they all did.
It's just so cool to watch this story finally come alive and watch Pete take something that's so vulnerable. I think a lot of people don't understand Pete, and this is a nice little look into his life.
Something's really cool about someone admitting to themselves all the faults and all the realities of how they got to where they're at. I'm even curious to just get to know someone I feel like I know so well more by watching this movie.
Did you happen to get a chance to take a look at the...
I drew like that too when I was 14.
You know, it's a really beautiful thing to share something that's this hard with other people. It's a real gift.
And I'm sure loads of young people are going to relate to this. Someone too scared to take a leap to do anything with their life, who's hindered by mental health and has trauma. And I just think it's really amazing that he's kind of laying that all out to bear.
I'm just hoping you enjoy the movie and that you could relate to it in a certain way.
I just feel like everybody's always disappointed in me. You're one of the few people who treat me, like a person.
You're welcome.
Hopefully it's all been a really positive, life-changing type of experience for him.
Hey guys, have fun out there, all right? This is what we do, we make movies.
That was a little bit more background on Pete Davidson. And what I forgot to mention earlier, not that it really matters now, but for some of you who still don't know who Pete Davidson is, he's on SNL. And also, there was a brief time, I think for 5 months, he was engaged to Ariana Grande. And then so that kind of created a big to-do in the media. So that kind of spun his life a little bit more out of control. But yeah, so he was engaged to her for a while. Now, up next, we have an interview that I was talking about, the first part of it anyway, or just one interview clip with Judd Apatow and Pete Davidson talking about the process of getting this movie started and how he would feel about it. So here is a little bit of Judd Apatow and Pete Davidson talking about the initial idea of getting this movie started.
When we started kicking it around and it became more and more personal, was that something you were comfortable with? Or
I've always been pretty open, but I never thought I would see it. It's much easier to talk about it than it is to because you're doing a version of yourself kind of, so you don't want to be disappointed in yourself while you're watching yourself. The hard part was being in the firehouse, because I don't go to the firehouse. I had to hang out with those boys again.
Coming up next, we have Pete Davidson talking to Judd Apatow a little about his childhood, what it was like during that time, and how he had basically a normal childhood and how his parents got divorced. So here's a little bit more from Pete Davidson.
For the most part, it was just a normal Staten Island family where it's a lot of love, can't be together, divorced, split the time. Fireman, nurse. It was pretty chill. It wasn't too much darkness. I had a very chill childhood. Up until that.
And then they got divorced 6 months before 9/11.
Yeah, 6 months to a year before. That's when I was 7 and like starting to understand like, oh, so like he's not going to be in this house anymore. I was just getting used to that.
Yeah.
You know, you're getting used to the new, like not seeing him. And then it's like, you don't see him at all.
Coming up next, we have a little bit more from Pete Davidson and Judd Apatow talking about how he grieved for his father's death, because for being in New York, you always, it was constantly always about 9/11, so he kind of felt he never had time to fully mourn. And Judd has a fun little discussion about how when somebody in his life died, and then they get into how comedy truly did save his life and gave him something to be happy about. So here he is talking about that.
The New York way of dealing with things is just distractions.
Yeah.
And then you never deal with it.
And so that's the thing that kind of messed you up the most, was it was just such a bizarre aftermath. Because I used to say to you when we were writing, my mom died 11 years ago. No one ever mentions it.
Right.
Like after that week, it just doesn't come up almost ever again.
9/11's mentioned on a weekly basis, so I think it made it impossible for me to grieve.
Yeah.
Because there was such a show.
In some way, comedy is what saved you, right?
Oh, absolutely. It gives a purpose and like stuff to do. And like, it was the first time I was ever happy was going to an open mic and just trying out a joke, and it got like a little bit of a giggle. You're like, yeah, that feeling's the best.
Coming up next, we have BelPowley, who plays Kelsey, the girlfriend of the main character, played by Pete Davidson. She's talking a little bit more about their relationship, how long they knew each other, and where they're trying to take the relationship to. So here she is talking about her character in their relationship.
I play a fictionalized version of what I'm sure is an amalgamation of women that he dated when he was younger. So like a Staten Island girl who he's known since he was a kid, they're really good friends. And a lot of the movie is them kind of trying to, it's a kind of push and pull relationship. Like they want to do it, but they can't quite get it right. This benefit part of being friends has recently developed, I guess, since they've gotten into their early 20s, and they're kind of looking at each other in a different way. Like, oh, I actually kind of think you're hot, even though I've known you since you were 4. So that's kind of a weird dynamic. And then also Pete's character, I mean, I don't want to speak for him, but, he holds a lot back because of, what's going on with his mental health and his dad and stuff. So it kind of takes a while for Kelsey to really get through to him, but then also get him to believe that she loves him and that he's worthy of that love.
Coming up next, we have a clip from the film The King of Staten Island. I'm going to set the scene up for you a little bit. In the scene, it's BelPowley, who plays Kelsey, the girlfriend. She's in bed with Pete Davidson's character, Scott. And they just got done doing the nasty. And they're having that little awkward conversation about, how did it all play out for you? So it shows a little bit more about his relationship and where he's at mentally and how they're trying to navigate that whole minefield. So here is a scene from The King of Staten Island.
Did you come?
Yes. Were you there? Yeah, I did.
Cool.
Like 6 times.
Awesome.
It was great. Did you?
No, but it's okay. I had fun. I had fun back there.
I feel bad that you never do.
No, I do all the time. I just, I don't put on a Broadway show like you do. I'm more quiet. I'm more like Charlie Chaplin when I come.
Like silent movie.
Silent movie.
Do you think it's the antidepressants?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, if I didn't have the antidepressants, I'd come in like 8 seconds. And then you wouldn't come. And then you'd be depressed. And then you would have to take antidepressants.
Coming up next, we have, like I said earlier, Judd Apatow often has his daughter and family members work with him. And in this movie, again, it's pretty much the same deal. This time it's Maudeapatow, his daughter, who plays the sister of Pete Davidson's character. So here she is talking about that relationship in the movie.
I play Claire, Scott's younger sister, and she has a very different relationship with Scott than Margie does. I think she's a little bit more defeated and sort of disappointed that things haven't gotten better and sort of like wishes they could be closer than they are. But I think she still loves Scott a lot and really wants to have a good relationship with him and sort of just struggles to find things in common with him because she's on a very different path.
Coming up next, we have a little bit more from Judd Apatow and Pete Davidson, talking, first of all, that, bringing up the idea that you're working with his daughter. And then also, what I really liked about this interview too is he really talks about how he's not like in the know. He's not like Mr. Hip on knowing the rules or being part of this whole, acting community. He's very raw and he's very honest about how he didn't realize you can't do certain things before a take or whatever. And you don't often hear this. So it's really kind of nice to see that, hey, not everybody out there is super confident and just knows what they're doing. He's just kind of like flying at the seat of his pants, in this whole world of where he's been put into. Anyway, here's a little bit more with Pete Davidson.
You got to work with my daughter Maud as your sister.
Yes, sir.
Who was the one person who would challenge you in the movie and call you out on everything.
Yes.
And I remember on the days we would shoot that, you genuinely seemed irritated to be called out on everything.
Oh no, yeah. Well, she's very precise.
Yeah.
She's like, she's working on crying.
Yeah.
So when she comes in and she's crying, like, be ready, Pete. You gotta respect other people's work. Like you gotta learn that there's other people that are getting in their own space. I didn't know that. I didn't know you can't go up to Marissa Tomei before a crying scene and be like, tell her a fart joke. She's gonna be like, what the? You don't know like that. So I was very lucky to be able to learn through a friend's set with a friend's daughter as well, instead of what could have been the worst.
Coming up next, we have Maudeapatow talking a little bit more about her character.
I think Claire, from all of the chaos growing up, sort of went in the opposite direction, sort of became a hyperachiever and had big goals and dreams and wanted to get out of Staten Island and sort of go to college. She knew exactly what she wanted, and Scott is different in that way where he's sort of just still trying to figure it out. And maybe for Claire, they sort of clash because he doesn't have that same sort of ambition or drive as she does.
Coming up next, we have another clip from the film The King of Staten Island. And in this scene, it's Pete Davidson with Maudeapatow, the brother and sister, just talking about their relationship. They're just sitting in the bedroom right now, just kind of venting a little bit. So here's a scene from The King of Staten Island.
You okay?
Yeah, what do you mean? Yeah.
You gonna be okay without me here?
But you don't think I could survive here without you?
Okay, just don't be a dick, okay? Be nice to Mom, okay? Don't give her a hard time. She deserves a break.
I always give her a break. When am I gonna get my break?
What are you talking about? All anyone ever does is worry about you. I was ignored my entire childhood because of you.
Oh yeah, I forgot that my childhood was so dandy.
Okay, you don't get to act crazy your whole life just because Dad died, okay? At least you got to know him.
Well, you're lucky you didn't get to know him, okay? Because that's why you're almost normal. If you got to know him, you would have known that he was the fucking coolest guy ever. And that would have ruined the rest of your life.
Okay, but what are you gonna do? Are you gonna get a job or are you gonna leave the house?
I don't know. I'm gonna open that tattoo restaurant.
No, for real.
I am being real. It's never been done before. I looked it up. I Googled it. It's never been done, not even as a joke.
Because no one wants to go to a restaurant and watch people get tattooed while they eat. It's gross.
It's the best idea ever. Ruby Tattoosdays, where everyone's welcome. Chicken and tattoos.
Coming up next, we have Maudeapatow talking about working with her father and how it's changed from when she was a little girl to now. So here is Maudeapatow.
I think since I've worked with him the last time, I care more about acting and actually before it just felt like I was a kid and sort of just doing it for fun, but now I take it much more seriously, and so it's really nice to have my dad there though, and I feel like he expects a lot of me, and which is really nice, and he'll be honest if he thinks I'm doing a bad job, and I trust him a lot, which feels really nice. My dad has a very relaxed, loose way of shooting, and we do things a ton of times and improvise, and I've never done that before, or I've only ever done that with him, so.
Up next, we have producer Barry Mendel talking about the process of finding the style of Pete Davidson, who plays a tattoo artist in this film.
One of the most fun things in doing the movie was figuring out Pete's style as a tattoo artist. And we looked through tens of thousands of tattoos and talked to, dozens of tattoo artists and trying to find his style. And it's a really fun part of the movie. People really enjoy Pete's work in the film.
Coming up next, we have a clip from the film, The King of Staten Island. Now, in this scene, Pete Davidson is talking to a group of friends who he's already done tattoos on. Some were not as successful as some, and this one guy talks about how he messed up his tattoo and how upsetting that was to him. And in one of the final conversations, since it's not a visual, you can't see it, I'll kind of try to set it up for you. When he's talking to his other friend, he's like, hey, he really liked his tattoo, and it's on his stomach, and it's over his belly button, if you will. So picture a cat facing away from you, kind of looking over his shoulder, and where that belly button would be. So here is a scene from The King of Staten Island.
I love Staten Island. It's amazing. And people are going to see it soon, trust me.
Well, if you love it so much, why don't you let me tattoo it on you?
No, I'm not going to let you tattoo me again.
Fine. Well, I need somebody to tattoo. I'm running out of... Come on, Rich, what about you, man?
Don't even look at me, dude.
Why?
Your work is mad inconsistent. Obama ain't right.
I got the eyes wrong, okay?
He's not right. All right, man, this has hurt me. Right? I don't have any black friends anymore. I can't go to the barbershop no more. You got Obama wrong. Ain't nothing worse than that.
What, you, Igor? You want a dragon or something?
Oh, I love your tattoos. My brother, it's a spitting image.
Yeah.
It's my favorite.
It's one
No,
of the
no,
best.
no, no, this is my favorite. Oh, you killed that.
Yeah, I really worked hard on the eyes.
He's so cute. I love his butthole. It reminds me that I have a belly button.
Coming up next, we have Judd Apatow talking to Pete Davidson about how this was a love letter to his mother and how it was like screening this when they had a very private screening just for the family. So here's a little bit more from them too.
The movie is like my love letter to my mom, and just like overall just like trying to end that part of my life where it's just like I feel like maybe we got to a place where we could finally let go a little bit. And there's art to it.
What did your mom think of the movie when she saw it?
Oh, she was hysterical. It was awesome. Yeah, whole family in tears.
Yeah.
Never been prouder.
Because you did a screening just for your family.
Yes.
And I would assume that would be terrifying. I know I was scared of the idea of all your family in a little screening room.
I was horrified. It was so scary, and but it was fun to watch what they found funny.
And what does your mom think about what it's saying to her? Like, can you have a talk with her about the point of the movie?
I think she got it. My mom's been out. My mom's been going out.
She's been going out on
She's
dates.
been coming back. I don't know if she's going out on dates, but she's like, I'm going to hang out with friends. I'll be back at like 2, 3 in the morning.
Wow.
And I'll be like, ooh.
Yeah.
I'll be like, okay. So like the last like month or so, she's been like really social.
Up next, we have more from Pete and Judd talking about the realities in the true in-your-face moment when you realize when you're shooting this film, real firemen are on the set with you.
When we were shooting the movie, we have everyone dressed up like firefighters. Some of them are real firefighters who were acting in the movie.
Right.
But then the real firefighters are like 2 feet away waiting to go out on a call, and then every once in a while the bell would go off.
Yeah.
And the real ones would
stop
leave.
shooting and like,
And it was, it's scary every time they leave.
Watching someone leave not knowing if they're going to come back is the scariest thing ever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Especially if you haven't talked to them or like you didn't, something you want to say to them. You know what I mean? Like, I was lucky. One of the last nights before my dad died, I had a sleepover at his house and we watched like Rambo or something, which was probably one of the reasons they got a divorce. I was like 7 just watching Rambo. But like, if you don't have closure, like it's terrifying to know a fireman.
Up next, we have them two talking about Stevebuscemi, about when he was a younger man, how he was a real fireman.
Stevebuscemi, who's in the movie, who plays Papa, he was a fireman when he was a young man.
Yeah, that was really cool. It was really cool for him to see him talking to like other firemen on set that were real firemen, that just being like, it's like this, you call it this, right? And all that, and it was just really sweet to see him like he really was a fireman. It's crazy.
And in a lot of ways, he's the healing figure in the movie. But watching his acting and watching his dailies, he's one of those people, it seems effortless, it's all perfect, and you're not sure how it's happening.
It's so good.
Up next, we have them two talking about working with Marissa Tomei. She plays the mother of his character. And I really like how they really get into the whole process.
How was it for you just working with Marissa Tomei?
That was just sick. She's just like an Oscar-winning actress. It's crazy. I couldn't believe that I was in the same room. It just didn't seem very real. And then she looked exactly like my mom.
Yeah.
And then we started getting along kind of like me and my mom. Yeah. And it was like really intense and cool. And like she's like old school. Like she's an actual actress. Like her on and off set is just two completely different people. Yeah. And it was just like, again, a learning thing. Like where you're like, okay, make sure you know your lines. Do not this up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's not messing around.
She's not messing around. Like she's ready. Like if you're gonna make her, like cry at a picture of a tattoo, like you better be ready to, like don't mess her up.
She's very serious about making every scene incredible.
Well, yeah. She also really cared about my mom. Yep. She like cared about me as well. She really wanted to make it like half of the time for the movie, she's like, "Are you actually okay?" She's like, "Are you okay?"
Yeah.
So like, she really got into that spirit, and it really was really great. And her and Bill are just so great together, which is awesome.
Up next, we listen to those two talk a little bit more about Staten Island as a place and how Pete Davidson gets along with the people in that town, and they have a little conversation about an experience of when they were shooting live on their set there, and how somebody kind of walks onto the set. Here it is.
I think what Staten Island, or the idea is, it's the sister to Long Island, where it's just like for families. And if you want to like be more fast paced, you go to Brooklyn, Manhattan, or whatever.
Do people like you on Staten Island?
I think it's 50-50. I think some people do, and they get it, where I'm coming from a loving place, where like I genuinely just want it to be better there.
Yeah.
And I think the other 50 are just like, dude, you man,
they hate you.
I hate you, man.
You want Staten Island to get better, so you prod it.
Yeah, I want people to come here and be like, wow, this place rocks. I don't want people to be like, hey, I'm afraid to get out to go get that, Moe's Southwestern grill wrap.
Because there's a lot of nice people on Staten Island, but every once in a while, there's a crazy person.
There's a lot of wonderful people on Staten Island. There's also a lot of wonderful, crazy, scary people on Staten Island that you have seen.
Well, every once in a while in the middle of shooting, one of them would come up to us.
Yeah, sometimes someone spunked out on heroin would just try and wander into the scene, and we would be like, we can't fit this into the program.
We'll take a break.
We'll take a little break.
And we'll deal with this gentleman.
Up next, we have these two talking about the honesty about dealing with mental illness and just being out there, and how this is a really great conversation between these two, and how they both go to therapy and how they deal with stuff.
When you're doing comedy and you're making a movie like this that has some discussion of mental health issues in it, what are you trying to say to people who are struggling by being so open about all of this?
Oh, just that like I have these issues and I'm able to do this, or they let me do this sometimes. So whatever you have it's going to be a-okay.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people have this. I think they just don't really talk about it.
Yeah.
But like luckily, Kid Cudi talked about it for me when I was growing up. That was super helpful, and I think he was the pioneer in like getting people to be open about mental health. And at the time, I think it scared a lot of people. But now it's becoming a more topic of conversation, and I think it's a really helpful thing, especially for like kids online that are just like not doing so great.
And the main advice is that it'll get better.
It always gets better. It'll get worse again too, but it always gets a lot better. Whenever you're at your worst, it's just like it has to go up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I had a therapist who just said you just have to be in touch with moods. Like, oh, this is that bad mood that comes.
Right.
And it will pass.
Yeah.
But if you're in it, maybe don't do anything important right now.
Right, yes. You learn how to deal with your crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's a really important thing. Also, seeing a therapist is cool.
Yeah.
Just having someone to talk to.
Do you like seeing a therapist?
It's super helpful, and if I didn't do it, it would be counterproductive.
Up next, we have them talking about when they were on set and they had his father's friends there, and how at first it made him really nervous, but then how it came around to it.
There was a day where we had a scene in a bar, and we decided to have a lot of your dad's friends in the bar. And before it, you really were worried about it, but on the day, you seemed to like having them all around.
Yeah, it was really nerve-wracking at first because like they're regular, like we get to deal with emotions all the time through watching movies and making stuff and like healing through that. Like these guys haven't seen anything in 20 years or seen me or any of me. So like all of this is just a straight shot to all of them. So I was just really worried about them. But then having them there made me more emotional and more like wanting to do a better job and put me more in the zone. So I think it helped a lot having them around.
Up next, they talk about a scene they had to shoot where it was very emotional for Pete to shoot. So here it is, them talking about an emotional moment in the movie for him.
There's a scene in the movie that was a hard scene to shoot where for the first time your character goes with them on a ride-along and just watches them put out an apartment building that's on fire, and that was one of the harder days for you.
Yeah, that was pretty sad. It wasn't sad, it was just kind of just like, even though it was like fake and all set up and whatever, it was still just like, wow, this is what they're doing, 5 days out of the week.
Yeah.
It's not just them watching Scarface. It's like they're, leaving everything behind just to go in and save people. So it was really just like seeing that for the first time in person on camera was a lot.
Coming up next, they talk about Pete's grandfather who introduced him to movies and who's also in this movie.
Your grandfather's in the movie.
Yeah, he is.
What is his name?
His name's Stephen Davidson, and he's a animal on set.
And so Stephen Davidson was the guy that got you interested in movies.
Yes. His father owned a movie theater, so he just grew up watching every single movie ever, and he had to babysit all the time, so he just made me watch every single movie ever, but they were like his, so I know like Ernest Borgnine and all those old guys.
Yeah. So he was the one that made you love movies, and he had to watch you, so he'd make you just watch old movies from the 40s.
Yeah, he made me watch old movies from the 40s, and then he got a camera, and we started making our own. And my mom got really mad because we would make like Mission Impossible, where I would like jump off of his shed, and like come down from the ceiling like in like cowboy boots, and I'm like 6 years old, and he would go, "What? We're making movies here."
Coming up next, they talk about how he got his first role in movies.
We were working on Trainwreck.
Yes.
And Amy Schumer was talking to me about who's funny. Who should we consider putting in the movie?
She threw an alley-oop for me.
She did. She said, you need to see this Pete Davidson kid. You were 19 then, maybe?
Yes, sir.
And she's like, it's crazy how funny he is at 19. And then I said, well, let's put him in this little scene in the hospital.
Right.
Just so we could say we were the first people to put him in something.
I was so happy that it wasn't cut.
We wanted you to be like Richard Dreyfuss in The Graduate.
Oh, he's in that?
Yeah, he has one line in The Graduate.
That's awesome.
At least we could say we knew before anyone else.
That's awesome.
And then, how was that day shooting on Trainwreck for you?
That was so crazy and scary because I didn't know, like, I never shot anything before, so I didn't know, like, you get there and then you just sit in your trailer. So, like, I didn't bring much stuff or deodorant. Like, I just came there, and then I started smelling like and I was just sitting in there because it's like middle of the summer in Manhattan, and then they're like, "You're wearing a tank top," and I was like, and then I was just super in my head about that the entire time, just stinking up the Apatow set.
But my monitor was far away from you, so I didn't know.
Yeah, I did the whole scene like this, even though my leg was busted. And yeah, it was just so much fun, and I got to improv with like Bill Hader the year he left from SNL. It was just super cool to like meet him that way.
And then Bill recommended you to Lorne,
yes.
And I bumped into Lorne and talked about you to Lorne, and then suddenly you were on SNL.
Yes.
All because of your stinky pits.
Yeah, all because of that.
Coming up next, they have a conversation about how Pete's mother convinced him to go to school.
Your mom said to me that she had to make a deal with you that she would allow you to go to Manhattan by yourself as a child in order to get you to go to school.
She's smart. She, my senior year at public school in Staten Island, you would get out of school at 11 a.m. My mom was like, not happening.
Yeah.
She's like, that's not happening. So you're coming to the school where I work your senior year and you get out at 3. So I was like, I just won't show up to school. And she was like, I will allow you to leave from the schools in Brooklyn. I allow you to leave. You can do stand-up as long as you're home. I mean, you don't even have, it doesn't matter what time you're home as long as you get up and go to school.
Yeah.
And I was like, deal. No problem.
And so she just let you roam alone.
Yeah.
And hang
so
out
I
with
was just like in
comedians.
weird bars with like DeRosa at like 4 in the morning when I was like 16 years
Joe
old.
DeRosa.
Yeah, DeRosa.
Took care of you.
Yeah.
So basically you found this group of comedians who are accepting of a super weird, partially bald, depressed child.
Yes.
And in a way, did you see it like, I found a world of acceptance, or like parental figures?
I think I just was like, wow, I could tell these people how I feel, because all the open mics is just people trying stuff out.
Yeah.
So it's just, it felt like a AA meeting for me, but with jokes.
We hope you enjoyed our look at the King of Staten Island. Now, if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, ways to improve the show, please feel free to drop me a line, cinemajudge@hotmail.com. And if you want to watch the show, which is the cable access show, please feel free. Go to blm.mn/btv-shows. Every podcast has a show, but not every show is a podcast. So I have a lot of other shows out there that I didn't make into a podcast. And I want to thank all the people who give me feedback, let me talk about the show. I want to say a special hello to Heather, who I just started talking to after basically more than 30 years that we went to school together for, all 18, but I really never talked to you then, but happened to bump into you recently. What a pleasure that is. And I want to thank people from all over the world, from, of course, the United States, India, United Kingdom, South Africa, Ireland, France, Vietnam, Ukraine, all over the world. Truly, I am just stunned and just thrilled that people take their time to listen to the show. With all the thousands of shows out there, you take a few moments out of your time to listen to this. So again, I am very grateful. Thank you very much for listening to The Cinema Judge.